Previously, we looked at how to warp the loom and how to use the loom to weave a beautiful scarf. Let's look at how to finish off the project so that it's ready to wear. I got this little Singer set of darning needles. It's been very useful. The one that I would use is this big chunky one. It has a blunt tip, so it's absolutely great for stitching on knitting. What I'm going to do here is I want about a little over a yard, I think, or a meter. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you know, everything I do is kind of inexact, but that's okay. So we'll just take that from weft yarn. It's always a bit tricky threading this because it does braid up, so I kind of lick it and that'll get it through this reasonably easily. There's always a bit of thread hanging off. You can always cut it again to get a clean edge. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is a pretty simple stitch. I'm essentially going to come 2 down on the weft thread, okay, and 2 in, okay. And what I'm going to do here is just kind of leave this hanging, and then I'll have a tail of maybe a couple of inches, all right, and then I'm going to come around the end here, okay. So I want to come around this end, and I'm just going to knot this in. Now, what I'm going to do here, okay, and this is going to seem weird, but this is going to wind up being part of the tassel, and that's how I hide it. Okay, so really what I'm going to do is loop my needle over once, twice, make a knot, okay, and pull it tight. Okay, that's going to go on the tassel and you're not going to see it, and it's not really going to come undone unless you put a bunch of force. There's going to be a knot here to hold the tassel, so we'll be okay. Okay, now what I'm going to do, all right, I went over to the end here. I'm going to come back in, 2 threads down, 2 threads in, and go through. Okay, all right, and then I'm going to come 2 threads across, so 1, 2, come through here, okay, and just pull that tight, and then I'm going to come, okay, so I'm there, so now I'm going to come down 2 threads, okay, so 2 threads down and 2 threads across, okay, come through, okay, so I'm 1, 2 up the top here, and I'm just going to do the zigzag stitch all the way down. And all this does is it just holds it together. Okay, so I'm here, I'm going to go 2 threads across, 2 threads down, bang, and come through, pull reasonably tight, okay, 2 threads up, 2 threads across on the outside, and that holds it in. Okay, and then down here, I'm going to go 2 threads across, 2 threads down, same again. Okay, and we'll go all the way across. just tie the same sort of slip knot at the other end, and we'll leave it about the length of a tassel on this side, and we are done. Okay, so now this is sort of held in together. Okay, so we can just cut off the loom. All right, so I'll do that on the back side. I don't know how long my tassel is going to be, so you know, you can't add materials, so you just want to sort of cut it long and then trim it later, because, you know, there we go. That is one end of our scarf done. Okay, I may have cut that one a bit short, sorry about that. Okay, cool. Now you see we wrap this on with the paper. What we're going to do is just release the pull again, and we're just going to pull the fabric off on this end. Okay, and we want to do essentially the same thing here. Okay, so let's get this paper out of the way. I'll just roll this up for next time. Trusty grocery store bags. In the US, they're made of paper, or can be made of paper, but if you find other scrap paper, that's good to use. Brown paper's good. Anything that's reasonably robust, definitely use that. And you can just reuse it over and over again. Eventually it gets ripped off on the ends. It's probably a good idea to trim them when you rip them apart, but I didn't do that with these. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is the same stitching here. Okay, then we're going to pull out the scrap thread, pull all this out, make our tassels, and then our scarf's kind of done. Okay, so same thing again. I'm probably going to not record this because it's not that interesting to watch. It's exactly the same as we did last time. So I'll come back when this is done. Okay, so we've stitched across here. The nice thing is the stitching really just disappears, and you know, you can sort of see it if you're looking for it. All right, the next thing we want to do is pull out our scrap yarn. And I find that's a little bit easier to do if I untie all this stuff, so I'm going to do that right now. If you don't care about saving a string, I guess you could just cut this off. I've used the same string now for about 12 scarves, so the funny thing is I sort of keep it. It's cut to the right length. I can use it over and over again. I don't see much point in just throwing stuff away. So, but you know, if you don't want to spend the time to do this, you can just cut it across there and it'll come out real easy. The tricky part of this is going to be untying the knots. Okay, so so what we're going to do now is just undo these overhand knots, and this can be a little time consuming sometimes, so you just got to be patient with it. Just sort of pull them apart a bit and they'll just come undone. There we go. Okay, and that's the first one, and it just makes it easier for getting that scrap yarn out. Next one. Okay, so I'm going to sit here and do this, and we'll come back when this is done. Okay, so we've got all the loops undone now. So what we want to do is just pull out the scrap yarn, which is sometimes a little bit easier said than done, to be honest with you. It helps if you just sort of pull it out a few threads at a time. You know, the hope is always that you just pull it out, but it never seems to just want to come out. Do you know what I mean? Like that. So what I usually do is kind of grab it in the middle here and just kind of pull out. And that will work sometimes and won't work others. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to rest this on here. Okay, push this back a little bit, and I'm going to tie these into groups of 8. Now, I know on the end here I have this extra tassel. Okay, then we're going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, and just going to do a simple overhand knot right here. Okay, the trick with this is make sure you get all the strands. Okay, and you want the knot to be as close to the fabric as you can. Okay, in a way this is all going to sort of hold it in place. Okay, and you want to wind up with that. Okay, nice and tight. And I'm just going to go along and do these in 8s. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, same thing. And you want 8 sequential ones. Don't get them too mixed up, because otherwise it's going to sort of do weird pulls, and you don't want that. Okay, so again, we want this to be as close to the fabric as we can. Okay, now between these tassels and the stitching, that's going to hold everything together really nicely. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, same again. I got an end here, so I want to make sure that I'm not leaving that out. You can always trim it or use a darning needle to kind of weave it back in. It's your choice. Okay, sometimes the knot doesn't go the way you want it to. That's fine. Just start again. What we've done now is we've stitched across the top and we've tied knots in groups of 8. And so this will keep our scarf together. The last thing we want to do is cut the tassels to length. Okay, I'm not going to do, you can actually do like a wind, which works quite well with wool and gives you fluffy tassels. I'm just going to leave the tassels as they are. Okay, and I want them to be about the same length. So let's get this in half. And okay, so we want them to be approximately the same length on both sides. It's an inexact science, and you know, so what I'm going to do here is basically get these lined up. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut across the bottom here with a sharp pair of scissors. Okay, so I want them all to be approximately the same length. So I'll get the 2 ends of the scarf here. It doesn't matter if they're not exact, to be honest with you. And I would cut into a bowl. Okay, so we'll come over here and we'll get these. I think we want to be about that length. Okay, and we'll just cut them across like that. You're just giving your scarf a haircut at this point. Alright, get the next lot. Just cut them in a group. I want to make sure these are approximately the same length. You can always put a darning needle in here to keep this together, and I may actually do that this time around because I don't want this moving around. So just pin it with a darning needle. Okay, and then we're going to get in here. Okay, and we want to kind of cut these off about the same length. Don't bend them too much. Okay, if you bend them too much, obviously you're going to wind up with shorter and longer tassels, which is probably not great. So we're just going to kind of cut across here like this. Okay, and then grab the next group, maybe 3 or 4 at a time, roughly get them about the same length, and just cut across. Okay, next group, just do them sort of 3 or 4 at a time, get them approximately the same length. Okay, so I'm going to go in there. Don't cut yourself if you can avoid it. Okay, and then the last group's here, roughly the same length. And then check your work, and that looks magnificent. All right, so our scarf is almost done. The last thing we're going to do is pull out the darning needle. We're going to pop it in some water for 20 or 30 minutes to let it bloom. And what that's going to do is just help the wool to come out. But the project is done. I'm really happy with this. Look at that, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Blooming the wool helps to fill gaps in the weave. So you leave it in the water for maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and then I stick it between a couple of towels and just walk along it. You don't want to wring it out because that's going to really kind of put weird aberrations into the weave. And then once I've got it sort of towel dry, I just hang it to dry for a day or so. And it comes out absolutely beautiful. The nice thing about the wool that we used is because of the variation in the wool, it creates a very complex pattern, but it's very easy to weave. So this is a great starter project. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully you'll make one of these, have fun with it, and I'll see you next time.